Something happened one night that nobody was supposed to see. A woman appeared at a man's door. But she was not a normal woman. She was tall. Her skin was pale like moonlight. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark. And standing behind her were 3 young girls. 3 daughters. All of them looked just like her. She did not say hello. She did not smile. She looked at the man standing in the doorway and she said 7 words that changed everything. Take care of them until I return. Then she turned around. And she was gone. Just like that. No explanation. No goodbye. No reason. And here is the part that will shake you to your core. This woman was not from Earth. She was not from any country you can find on a map. She was not from any city in the USA or the UK or anywhere else on this planet. She was a queen. An alien queen. The most powerful being in her entire galaxy. And she had just left her 3 daughters behind on a strange planet called Earth. But why? Why would the most powerful queen in the universe abandon her own children? Why would she choose this one man? Why Earth? And what did she mean when she said, until I return? Those are the questions that nobody has been able to answer. And today, we are going to try. In this story, you are going to discover 3 things that will blow your mind completely. First, you will find out the real reason the alien queen left her daughters behind. And it is not what you think. Second, you will learn what those 3 daughters were hiding inside them. A secret so powerful it could destroy entire worlds. And third, you will find out what happened when the queen finally came back. And why her return was the most terrifying moment in the entire story. This is not just a sci-fi story. This is a story about love, sacrifice, power, and the kind of choices that only the strongest beings in the universe are forced to make. Let me show you exactly how this happened. His name was Daniel Carter. He was 26 years old. He lived alone in a small house on the edge of a quiet town in northern England. The kind of town where nothing ever happened. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone. Where the biggest news of the week was usually about the weather or the local football team losing again. Daniel worked the night shift at a security company. He checked buildings. He walked empty parking lots. He watched camera screens for hours without seeing anything interesting. It was a boring job. But it paid the bills. And Daniel was the kind of man who did not complain. He just kept his head down and kept going. He had no family nearby. His parents had moved to Australia 3 years ago. He had a few friends, but they were all busy with their own lives. He was not unhappy. But he was alone, and deep down, he had started to feel like his life was going nowhere. That was about to change. It was a Tuesday night in October. The air was cold and sharp, the kind of cold that bites at your face and makes your eyes water. Daniel had just finished his shift. He was tired. His feet hurt. All he wanted was a hot cup of tea in his bed. He pulled up to his house just after 3 in the morning. He parked his car. He grabbed his bag. He walked up the short path to his front door. And that is when he saw them. 4 figures standing at his door. He stopped walking. His brain tried to make sense of what he was seeing. 4 people. Standing completely still. In the dark. At 3 in the morning. Outside his house. He took a slow step forward. Then another. The streetlight above his door flickered once, and then held steady. And in that pale yellow light, he finally saw them clearly. The first figure was a woman. She was tall. Much taller than any woman Daniel had ever seen. She had to be at least 6.5 feet. Her skin was white. Not pale like a person who never goes outside. White like fresh snow. Like something that had never seen sunlight. Her hair was long and silver, and it moved slightly even though there was no wind. Her eyes were the most unsettling part. They were large. Too large for a human face. And they glowed. A soft, cold blue light that pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. She was wearing something that looked like armor. Dark and smooth and fitted perfectly to her body. It had faint lines of light running through it like veins. It made no sound when she moved. And she moved like water. smooth and effortless and completely silent. Standing behind her were 3 girls. The first girl looked about 16. She had the same silver hair as the woman, the same pale skin. But her eyes were different. They were green, bright and sharp like 2 emeralds catching light. She stood straight and still with her arms at her sides. She was watching Daniel with an expression that was hard to read. Not scared, not angry, just watching. The second girl looked a little younger, maybe 14. Her skin was a soft blue color, not sick-looking. Beautiful, actually, like the color of a clear sky just before sunset. Her hair was dark and braided tightly against her head. Her eyes were gold, warm and deep and full of something that looked almost like sadness. The third girl was the youngest. She looked about 10 or 11. Her skin was green, a rich, vibrant green like new leaves in spring. Her hair was white and wild, and it stuck out in every direction like she had just woken up. Her eyes were silver. And unlike her sisters, she was not standing still. She was fidgeting, shifting her weight from foot to foot, looking around at everything with wide, curious eyes. Daniel stood there on his own path, staring. His bag had slipped from his fingers and hit the ground, but he had not noticed. The tall woman looked at him. Her glowing blue eyes locked onto his face. And she spoke. Her voice was low and clear. It had a strange quality to it, like it was coming from everywhere at once, like it was inside his head and outside it at the same time. She said, "You are Daniel Carter?" It was not a question. Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He closed it again. He tried once more. "Yes," he said. His voice came out smaller than he intended. The woman nodded once. She looked at him for a long moment, like she was checking something, like she was making sure he was exactly who she expected him to be. Then she stepped to the side. She placed one long, pale hand gently on the shoulder of the oldest girl. She looked at her daughters one by one. Something passed across her face. Something that looked like pain. Like the kind of pain that lives so deep inside a person that they have learned to keep it completely hidden. But for just 1 second it showed. Then she looked back at Daniel. "These are my daughters," she said. "Their names are Lyra, Saya, and Pip. You will take care of them. You will keep them safe. You will not tell anyone what they are, and you will not ask questions that I cannot yet answer." Daniel blinked. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "What?" "I am leaving them with you," she said again. Her voice was completely calm, like she was telling him something simple, like she was asking him to water a plant while she went on holiday. "You can't just—" Daniel started. "I know what I am asking," she said, and something in her voice made him stop talking, not because it was threatening, but because it was so heavy, so full of something enormous that he could not name. "I know this is not what you expected tonight. I know you do not understand. But I need you to trust me. And I need you to take care of them." "Why me?" Daniel asked. It was the only question that made sense to ask. She looked at him for a long moment. "Because you are the only one I trust," she said quietly. Daniel had never met this woman before in his life. He wanted to say that. He wanted to point that out, but something stopped him. Something about the way she said it. Something about the absolute certainty in her voice. Like she had thought about this for a very long time. Like this decision had cost her something enormous. She turned to her daughters. She spoke to them in a language Daniel had never heard. It was soft and musical and fast. The oldest girl, Lyra, nodded once. Her jaw was tight. Her green eyes were bright. The middle girl, Saya, looked down at the ground. Her golden eyes were wet. The youngest, Pip, grabbed her mother's hand and held it with both of hers, and said something back in that same language. Her voice was small and shaking. The woman knelt down. She was still taller than most people, even kneeling. She held Pip's face in her hands. She said something soft and quiet. Pip shook her head. The woman said it again. Pip pressed her lips together and nodded slowly. Then the woman stood up. She looked at Daniel one last time. "I will return," she said. "When I do, I will need my grandchildren." Daniel's brain completely stopped working. "You're what?" he said. But she was already walking away, down his path, into the dark street. And then something happened that Daniel would spend the rest of his life trying to explain. She did not get into a car. She did not walk around a corner. She simply kept walking. And then she was gone. Like the darkness had swallowed her whole. Like she had never been there at all. Daniel stood on his path for a full minute. Not moving. Not thinking. Just standing. Then he heard a small sound behind him. He turned around. 3 alien girls were standing at his front door, looking at him. Waiting. Pip, the youngest, tilted her head to one side. Her silver eyes blinked slowly. Then she pointed at the door and said in perfect, clear English, "Are you going to let us in? It is very cold." Daniel picked up his bag from the ground. He walked to his door. He unlocked it with hands that were not quite steady. He pushed it open. He stepped aside. And just like that, his life changed forever. The first morning was the strangest morning of Daniel's entire life. He had not slept. Not even close. He had sat in his armchair all night with a cup of tea that went cold in his hands, watching the 3 girls sleep on his sofa and the floor, trying to figure out if he was dreaming, trying to figure out what he was supposed to do next. By the time the sun came up, he had made a decision. He was not going to panic. He was not going to call anyone. He was not going to do anything dramatic. He was just going to take it one step at a time. 1 hour at a time. And he was going to start by making breakfast. He got up. He went to the kitchen. He started making eggs and toast. Simple. Normal. Something he could control. He heard movement behind him. He turned around. All 3 girls were standing in the kitchen doorway, watching him. Lyra, the oldest, had her arms crossed. She was studying the kitchen like she was memorizing every detail. Her green eyes moved slowly from the refrigerator to the stove to the kettle to Daniel. She said nothing. Saya, the middle one, was standing slightly behind Lyra. Her blue skin looked even more vivid in the morning light. She was watching the eggs in the pan with an expression of deep fascination, like she had never seen anything cooked before. Pip was already inside the kitchen. She had somehow gotten past her sisters without Daniel noticing. She was standing on her tiptoes trying to look inside the refrigerator. She pulled the door open wider. A cold blast of air hit her face. She blinked. Then she smiled. It was the first smile Daniel had seen from any of them. It was a big, genuine, delighted smile. Like the refrigerator was the most wonderful thing she had ever encountered. "It is cold inside," she announced. "But the food is not frozen. How does it do that?" "It's a fridge," Daniel said carefully. "It keeps food cold, but not frozen." Pip nodded seriously. "Impressive technology," she said. Daniel turned back to the eggs. He took a slow breath. "Can you all eat eggs?" he asked. "And toast?" "We can eat most organic matter," Lyra said from the doorway. Her voice was flat and precise. "Our digestive systems are highly adaptable." "Right," Daniel said. "Good. That's good." He made 4 plates. He set them on the small kitchen table. He sat down. The 3 girls sat across from him. They looked at the food. Then they looked at him. Then they looked at the food again. Pip picked up a piece of toast. She sniffed it. She took a small bite. She chewed slowly. Her silver eyes went wide. She took a much bigger bite. "This is incredible," she said with her mouth full. Saya picked up her fork. She looked at it carefully. She turned it over in her fingers. Then she looked at Daniel's hand to see how he was holding his. She copied him exactly. She took a small bite of egg. She chewed. She swallowed. She looked at the plate again and took another bite. Lyra ate without comment. But she ate everything on her plate, quickly and completely. For a few minutes, nobody spoke. The only sounds were forks on plates and Pip making small happy noises every time she tried something new. Then Lyra put down her fork. She looked at Daniel directly. "You have questions," she said. "About 1,000, Daniel said. Ask the most important one, she said. Daniel thought for a moment. There were so many. But there was one that had been sitting at the front of his mind all night. The one that felt the most urgent. The most necessary. Why did your mother leave you here? He asked. The kitchen went quiet. Saya looked down at her plate. Pip stopped eating. Lyra held Daniel's gaze for a long moment. Something moved behind her green eyes. Something complicated and deep. We do not know, she said finally. Daniel frowned. She didn't tell you? She told us that we would be safe here, Lyra said. She told us that we needed to stay. She told us that she would come back. But she did not tell us why. She never tells us why, Pip said quietly. She was looking at her toast. Her voice had lost all its earlier brightness. She just decides things. And then they happen. She is a queen, Saya said softly. Queens do not always explain. Daniel leaned back in his chair. He looked at the three of them. 3 alien girls sitting at his kitchen table in northern England eating toast and eggs. 3 girls who had been left behind by their mother with no explanation. 3 girls who were trying very hard to seem calm and okay. He recognized that feeling. He knew exactly what it looked like when someone was trying to hold themselves together. Okay, he said. You don't have to tell me everything right now. But I need to know a few basic things. Are you in danger? Is anyone looking for you? Do I need to worry about someone showing up at my door? Lyra considered this. Not immediately, she said. That is not a comforting answer, Daniel said. No. Lyra agreed. It is not. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. He looked at the ceiling. He looked back at the 3 girls. All right, he said. Here's what we are going to do. You are going to stay here. I am going to figure out how to make that work. But I need you to follow some rules. No going outside without telling me. No using any powers or abilities or whatever you have in front of other people. No telling anyone what you are. Can you do that? Lyra nodded. Yes. Saya nodded. Yes. Pip looked up from her toast. What if someone asks why Saya is blue? We will figure that out, Daniel said. I could wear a hat, Saya offered quietly. A hat won't cover your face, Daniel said. A very large hat, Saya said. Despite everything, Daniel almost smiled. Over the next few days, Daniel learned things about the 3 girls that he had not expected. He had expected them to be cold, distant, alien in every sense of the word. And in some ways they were. Lyra barely spoke unless she had something specific to say. She spent most of her time sitting by the window watching the street outside with those sharp green eyes. Like she was cataloging everything. Like she was building a map of this world in her head. Saya was quieter still. She moved through the house like a shadow. Soft and careful. She never touched anything without permission. She never sat anywhere without checking first if it was okay. She was the most careful person Daniel had ever met. But sometimes he would catch her standing in the garden in the early morning, just standing there with her eyes closed and her face turned up toward the sky. And the expression on her face in those moments was the most peaceful thing he had ever seen. Pip was the opposite of quiet. Pip was a force of nature. She asked questions about everything. Every single thing she encountered became a subject of intense investigation. The television, the washing machine, the garden hose, the neighbor's cat. She took apart Daniel's old radio to see how it worked, and then put it back together perfectly. She learned to use the internet in about 40 minutes and then spent 3 days reading everything she could find about Earth history, science, geography, and something called competitive baking shows which she became completely obsessed with. But underneath all of that, Daniel could see something else. Something that all 3 of them shared. A kind of waiting. A kind of listening. Like they were always half expecting to hear something. Like they were always half turned toward a door that had not opened yet. They were waiting for their mother. And as the days turned into weeks, Daniel began to realize something that made his chest feel heavy. They were not just waiting. They were afraid. Not of him. Not of Earth. They were afraid of whatever had made their mother leave them here in the first place. Because whatever it was It was big enough to make the most powerful queen in the galaxy run. And it was still out there. 3 months passed. Daniel had not planned for any of this. He had not planned to become the guardian of 3 alien girls. He had not planned to spend his evenings helping Lyra understand human social customs, or explaining to Pip why you could not simply disassemble the neighbor's lawnmower to improve its efficiency. He had not planned any of it. But here he was. And somewhere along the way, without him noticing exactly when, it had started to feel normal. He had told his work that he had family staying with him. He had told his neighbors that the girls were his cousins from overseas. Saya had started wearing a light foundation that Pip had mixed herself using materials from the pharmacy that somehow perfectly matched a human skin tone. Lyra had cut her silver hair shorter and dyed the ends dark so it looked less unusual. Pip refused to change anything about her appearance, but she was small enough and energetic enough that most people just assumed she was an unusual child and moved on. They were making it work. But the questions never went away. One evening Daniel came home from his shift to find Lyra sitting at the kitchen table with a piece of paper in front of her. She had drawn something on it. A map. But not a map of Earth, a map of something else. Something with multiple star systems and lines connecting them, and small symbols written in a language Daniel could not read. He sat down across from her. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra looked at the map for a moment. Then she looked at him. "Our home," she said. "Our galaxy. Our mother's territory. Can you tell me about it?" Daniel asked. Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she began to talk. She told him about a galaxy called the Verith, a vast and ancient place with hundreds of inhabited worlds. She told him about the Verith Empire, the civilization that her mother ruled, an empire that had existed for over 10,000 years, that had survived wars and plagues and the collapse of entire star systems, that had been built on a foundation of strength and order, and the absolute authority of the Queen. Her mother's name was Zara, Queen Zara of the Verith, the most powerful ruler in the known galaxy. She had ruled for over 200 years. She had fought wars that lasted decades. She had made decisions that shaped the fate of billions of lives. She was feared and respected and obeyed without question across hundreds of worlds. And she had 3 daughters: Lyra, Saya, and Pip. Each one born from a different father. Each one carrying a different piece of their mother's power. "What kind of power?" Daniel asked carefully. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, like she was deciding how much to say. "Lyra can see," Saya said from the doorway. Daniel had not heard her come in. She walked to the table and sat down. "She can see things that have not happened yet. Possible futures. Threads of what might be." "And you?" Daniel asked. Saya looked at her hands. "I can feel," she said quietly. "Everything that lives, every creature, every person. I can feel what they feel. I can feel when something is wrong, when something is coming." "And Pip?" Daniel asked. As if on cue, Pip appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was holding a piece of toast in one hand and a screwdriver in the other. She looked at Daniel. She looked at her sisters. She looked at the map on the table. "Pip can break things," Lyra said. "I prefer the term restructure," Pip said cheerfully. She sat down at the table and looked at the map. Her silver eyes traced the lines of it. Something shifted in her expression. Something older and heavier than her usual brightness. "She can restructure matter," Lyra continued. "At a molecular level. She can take something apart and put it back together differently. She can change what things are made of, what they do, how they work." Daniel looked at Pip. Pip took a bite of toast. "That is why our mother hid us," Lyra said. Her voice was very quiet now. "Together, the 3 of us are something that has never existed before. Something that the Empire has never seen. Our mother knew that if the wrong people found out what we could do together, they would come for us. They would use us. Or they would destroy us." "Who are the wrong people?" Daniel asked. Lyra looked at the map. She pointed to a cluster of star systems on the far edge of it, a place marked with a symbol that looked like a broken circle. "The Krath," she said. They have been at war with our mother for 60 years. They have lost every battle. But they have never stopped looking for a way to win. And if they found out about us..." She stopped. "They would use you as a weapon," Daniel said. "Or they would kill us to make sure our mother could never use us," Lyra said. "Either way, we would not survive." The kitchen was very quiet. Daniel looked at the three girls, at Lyra with her sharp green eyes and her careful words, at Saya with her soft golden eyes and her hands folded quietly in her lap, at Pip with her wild white hair and her toast and her screwdriver and her enormous ancient power sitting inside her like a sleeping star. "So your mother brought you here to hide you," he said. "Yes," Lyra said. "And she chose Earth because nobody would look here," Lyra said. "Earth is young, small, unimportant in the larger picture of the galaxy. Nobody pays attention to Earth." "Comforting," Daniel said. "It is meant to be," Lyra said. And for the first time since he had met her, something that might have been a very small smile crossed her face. Daniel looked at the map again, at the broken circle symbol, at the vast distances between the star systems, at the tiny dot that must have been Earth, sitting at the very edge of everything. "Is she safe?" he asked. "Your mother. Is she okay?" The three girls looked at each other. Something passed between them. Something silent and heavy. "We do not know," Saya said softly, and that was the truth that none of them had said out loud until now. The truth that had been sitting in the house with them for 3 months. The truth that explained the waiting and the listening, and the way all three of them sometimes went very still and very quiet, for no reason that Daniel could see. They did not know if their mother was alive. 6 months after the night they arrived, something changed. It started with Saya. She woke up in the middle of the night screaming. Daniel was out of bed and down the hall before he was fully awake. He pushed open the door to the room the girls shared. Lyra was already sitting up. Pip was standing in the middle of the room looking scared in a way that Daniel had never seen her look before. And Saya was sitting against the wall with her knees pulled to her chest and her golden eyes wide, and her blue skin pale in a way that made her look almost gray. Daniel crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "Saya." "Hey, look at me. What happened?" Saya looked at him. Her eyes were not quite focused, like she was still seeing something else. "Something far away. Something is coming," she whispered. "What do you mean?" Daniel asked. "I felt it," she said. "Something found us. Something is coming here." The room went very cold. "How long?" Lyra asked. Her voice was completely steady, like she had been preparing for this. "I don't know," Saya said. "Days, maybe less." Daniel stood up. He looked at Lyra. "What do we do?" "We prepare," Lyra said simply. What followed was the most intense 48 hours of Daniel's life. Lyra took charge in a way that made it very clear she had been thinking about this possibility for a long time. She gave instructions quickly and calmly. She told Daniel what they needed. She told Pip what to do. She told Saya to rest and keep feeling, to keep tracking whatever was coming and report any changes. Pip worked through the night. Daniel did not fully understand what she was doing. She moved through the house touching things, the walls, the doors, the windows, the floor. Everywhere she touched, something changed. Not visibly, not in any way Daniel could see, but he could feel it. A kind of hum, a kind of density in the air, like the house was becoming something more than a house. "What is she doing?" Daniel asked Lyra quietly. "Restructuring," Lyra said. "The walls, the doors, the glass. She is changing what they are made of at a molecular level, making them stronger. Much stronger." "How much stronger?" Daniel asked. "Strong enough," Lyra said. On the second day, Saya sat up suddenly from where she had been resting on the sofa. Her eyes snapped open. "Tonight," she said. "They came at midnight. There were 4 of them. They did not come through the door. They came through the wall. Or they tried to. What happened instead was that they hit Pip's restructured wall, and the wall did not move. There was a sound like a thunderclap, The whole house shook. Daniel grabbed the door frame to stay upright. Then Lyra walked to the front door and opened it. Standing outside were 4 figures in dark armor, not unlike the armor their mother had worn, but darker, heavier, with that broken circle symbol on the chest. The Krath. They were big, bigger than any human. They had gray skin and flat black eyes, and they radiated something that felt like pressure, like standing too close to something that wanted to crush you. They looked at Lyra. They looked at the house. They looked at each other. "You cannot take us," Lyra said. Her voice was completely calm. "You know what we can do. You know what will happen if you try." One of the Krath stepped forward. It spoke in a language Daniel did not understand. But Lyra answered in the same language. Back and forth. Short and sharp. Like a negotiation. Like a warning. Then the Krath looked past Lyra. It looked at Daniel. It said something. Lyra's jaw tightened. "What did it say?" Daniel asked quietly. "It said you are irrelevant," Lyra said. "It said humans are nothing." Daniel looked at the Krath. At its flat black eyes. At the broken circle on its chest. "Tell it," Daniel said slowly, "that this is my house. And nobody comes into my house uninvited." Lyra looked at him for a moment. Then she turned back to the Krath and said something. The Krath was still for a moment. Then it made a sound that might have been a laugh. Then Pip appeared in the doorway beside Lyra. She was not smiling. She was not fidgeting. She was completely still. And the air around her was doing something strange. Vibrating. Shifting. Like reality itself was paying attention to her. She looked at the Krath. She raised one small hand. The armor of the lead Krath made a sound. A deep, grinding, tearing sound, like metal being pulled apart from the inside. The Krath looked down at its own chest. The broken circle symbol was changing. Cracking. Falling apart. Piece by piece. The Krath took a step back. Pip lowered her hand. "Go," she said. Her voice was quiet. But it filled the entire street. The Krath went. They did not run. But they left, quickly and without looking back. And the night was quiet again. Daniel stood in his doorway for a long moment. Then he looked at Pip. "You could have done that the whole time?" he said. "Yes," Pip said. "Why didn't you say so?" "You did not ask," she said. And she went back inside to finish her toast. A year passed. And then another. Daniel's life had become something he could not have imagined 2 years ago. He had quit the night shift job. He had started working from home doing security consulting, something Lyra had suggested, and then essentially set up for him using her ability to see possible futures and identify exactly which clients would be most valuable. His income had tripled in 6 months. Lyra had started taking online university courses. She was studying astrophysics and political science simultaneously. She finished assignments in hours that were supposed to take weeks. Her professors thought she was a prodigy. She was, in a sense. Just not the kind they imagined. Saya had discovered music. She had found an old guitar in a charity shop and taught herself to play in 3 days. Then she had started writing songs. She never performed them for anyone except Daniel and her sisters. But they were extraordinary. They made you feel things you did not have words for. Daniel suspected that was not entirely accidental. Pip had built a small laboratory in the garage. Daniel had learned not to ask too many questions about what happened in there. But occasionally something would emerge from the garage that was quietly remarkable. A water filter that worked better than anything commercially available. A small device that could detect structural weaknesses in buildings. A battery that lasted 6 times longer than it should have. Pip gave these things away without any interest in credit or money. She just made them because she could. They had become, in the strangest and most unexpected way, a family. Not a normal family. Nothing about any of this was normal. But something real. Something that mattered. And then one evening in early spring, Lyra went very still. Daniel noticed immediately. He had learned to read the 3 of them well enough by now. He knew what Lyra looked like when she was seeing something. Her eyes went slightly unfocused. Her breathing slowed. Her hands went flat on whatever surface she was touching. He waited. After a few minutes, she came back. She looked at him. Her green eyes were very bright. "She is coming," Lyra said. Daniel did not need to ask who. "When?" he said. "Soon," Lyra said. "Days." The house changed after that. Not physically. But the feeling of it changed. The waiting that had always been there, that low hum of anticipation that Daniel had gotten so used to he barely noticed it anymore, suddenly became loud. Suddenly became present. All three girls were quieter. More careful. More inside themselves. Saya stopped playing guitar. Pip spent more time in the garage. Lyra sat by the window again the way she had in those first weeks. Watching. Waiting. Daniel found himself doing the same thing. Watching the street. Watching the sky. Wondering what it would feel like when she came back. Wondering what she would say. Wondering what she had been doing for 2 years. Wondering if she was the same person who had stood at his door in the dark and handed him 3 daughters and walked away. Wondering what she had meant when she said she would need her grandchildren. That part had never made sense. The girls were teenagers and a child. They were not going to have children anytime soon. So what had she meant? What was she planning? What did she know that none of them knew? On the 3rd day after Lyra's vision, Pip came out of the garage. She was carrying something. A small device. Flat and round and smooth. It glowed faintly with a soft blue light. She handed it to Daniel. "What is this?" he asked. "A communicator," Pip said. "I built it from components I have been collecting. It can reach across interstellar distances. I have been working on it for 8 months." Daniel looked at the device. "Does it work?" "I tested it last night," Pip said. She paused. "I reached our mother." The room went completely silent. "She is alive," Pip said. Her voice was very careful, very controlled. "She is coming." "But Daniel." She stopped. "What?" Daniel said. "She is not coming alone," Pip said. "And she is not coming in peace." It happened on a Thursday night. Daniel was in the kitchen making tea. Lyra was at the table with her books. Saya was in the garden. Pip was in the garage. The sky turned white. Not gradually. Not like a sunrise. All at once. Like someone had turned on a light the size of the sun directly above the town. Every window in the house blazed. Daniel dropped his mug. He heard Saya cry out from the garden. He heard something crash in the garage. Then the light faded. And in the silence that followed, Daniel heard something. A sound he had never heard before. Low and deep and resonant. Like the sound a mountain would make if a mountain could hum. He went to the front door. He opened it. The street was empty. The neighbors' lights were coming on. People were looking out of windows. But nobody was coming outside. Something in the air was keeping them back. Something that felt like a held breath. Daniel stepped onto his path. The sky above his house was different. There was something there. Something enormous. He could not see it clearly. It was like trying to look at something that existed just slightly outside the range of human vision. But he could feel it. The weight of it. The size of it. Then she came down. Not in a ship. Not in any vehicle. She simply descended from the sky the way a person steps off a curb. Calm and unhurried. Like gravity was something she had agreed to cooperate with rather than something that had any real authority over her. Queen Zara landed on Daniel's path. She looked exactly the same. Tall. White skin. Silver hair. Glowing blue eyes. The dark armor with its veins of light. She looked at Daniel. And for a moment, just a moment, something crossed her face that he recognized. Something that looked like relief. "Daniel Carter," she said. "Your Majesty," Daniel said. He was not sure why he said that. It just felt right. She almost smiled. Then the 3 girls were there. They had come out of the house behind him. He heard them stop. He stepped to the side. Zara looked at her daughters. Lyra stood straight. Her green eyes were bright and wet, and she was holding herself very still the way she always did when she was feeling something enormous. Saya made a sound, small and broken. And then she crossed the path in 3 steps and wrapped her arms around her mother. Zara held her, one long pale arm around Saya's blue shoulders, her eyes closed for just a moment. Pip did not move. She stood on the doorstep with her arms crossed and her silver eyes fixed on her mother. Her expression was complicated, hurt and angry and relieved, and something else. Something that was working very hard to stay in control. "You left," Pip said. "Yes," Zara said. "You did not tell us why," Pip said. "No," Zara said. "Tell us now," Pip said. Zara looked at her youngest daughter for a long moment. Then she gently released Saya. She walked to the doorstep. She knelt down in front of Pip. And she told them everything. The war with the Krath had reached a turning point 2 years ago. The Krath had developed a weapon. Not a physical weapon, something worse. A device that could locate and target specific genetic signatures across interstellar distances. They had built it specifically to find the 3 daughters of Queen Zara. To find the 3 girls whose combined abilities represented the only power in the galaxy that could end the Krath forever. If the Krath had found the girls while they were still in Varith space, they would have been taken, used, or destroyed. There was no scenario in which they survived. So Zara had done the only thing she could do. She had taken her daughters somewhere the Krath's device could not reach. Somewhere so far outside the known galaxy, so far outside any map the Krath possessed, that the signal could not find them. She had brought them to Earth. And then she had gone back, not to run, not to hide, to fight, to draw the Krath's attention away from Earth, to keep them looking in the wrong direction for as long as it took, to buy her daughters time. 2 years of war, 2 years of battles across dozens of star systems, 2 years of being the target so that her daughters could be safe. "You fought them alone?" Lyra said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Not alone," Zara said, "but mostly. You could have died," Pip said. "Yes," Zara said simply. "And you did it anyway," Pip said. "You are my daughters," Zara said. Like that explained everything. Like that was the only answer that mattered. Because it was. Pip uncrossed her arms. She looked at her mother for a long moment. Then she stepped forward and pressed her face against her mother's shoulder. Zara held her. She held all 3 of them, right there on Daniel's doorstep in the middle of a quiet English street with the enormous invisible ship humming softly above them. Daniel stood to the side. He felt like he was watching something private, something sacred. He started to step back inside. "Daniel." He stopped. Zara was looking at him over her daughters' heads. "Thank you," she said. It was 2 words, simple and quiet. But the weight behind them was immense. He could feel it. The full measure of what she was saying, what she was thanking him for. 2 years. 2 daughters who had learned to trust again. 1 daughter who had learned to be a child again. A family that had been kept safe by a man who had no reason to do it, except that it was the right thing to do. "They're good kids," Daniel said. His voice came out a little rough. "You did a good job." Zara looked at him for a moment longer. Then she nodded once. And something in her expression settled. Like a weight she had been carrying for a very long time had shifted slightly. Then she stood up. She looked at her daughters. She looked at the house. She looked at Daniel. "I said I would need my grandchildren," she said. "Yeah," Daniel said. "I've been thinking about that. It was not a demand," she said. "It was a hope. The Krath are not finished. The war is not over. But there is a prophecy in our culture. Ancient. Older than the Empire itself. It speaks of a time when the blood of the stars meets the blood of the earth. When 2 worlds become one. When the children of that union carry a power that neither world could produce alone." Daniel was very quiet. "You are not just a guardian, Daniel Carter," Zara said. "You were chosen. Not by me. By something older than both of us. The prophecy named this place. Named this time. Named a man of Earth who would raise the daughters of the stars. And the grandchildren? Daniel asked. We'll be the bridge, Zara said. Between your world and mine. Between humanity and the stars. The ones who will finally end the war. Not through destruction. Through something the Krath have never encountered and cannot fight. What's that? Daniel asked. Zara looked at her daughters. At Lyra, who could see the future. At Saya, who could feel every living thing. At Pip, who could change the nature of matter itself. And then she looked at Daniel. At the man who had opened his door in the middle of the night and said yes without knowing why. Who had made breakfast and set rules and sat up worrying and built something real out of nothing. Compassion, she said quietly. The Krath have never encountered a power built on compassion. They do not understand it. They cannot predict it. They cannot fight what they cannot understand. The street was quiet. The invisible ship hummed above them. The neighbors' lights had gone off one by one. The town had gone back to sleep. Daniel looked at the sky. At the stars that were just becoming visible again now that the white light had faded. He thought about the vast distances between them. About the wars being fought in places he would never see. About 3 girls who had sat at his kitchen table and eaten toast and changed his life completely. What happens now? He asked. Now, Zara said, we go home. She looked at Daniel, all of us. Daniel looked at his house. His small ordinary house in his small ordinary town. He thought about his cold tea on the kitchen counter. About his security consulting business. About the neighbor's cat that Pip had named Professor Biscuit and fed every morning. He looked at Lyra. She was watching him with those sharp green eyes. Waiting, he looked at Saya. She was watching him too. And he could feel, even without her ability, what she was feeling. Because he was feeling it too. He looked at Pip. She had somehow produced a piece of toast from somewhere and was eating it. She raised an eyebrow at him. Well? She said. Daniel looked at the sky one more time. Then he went inside to pack. Here is the thing about this story that nobody talks about. It is not really a story about an alien queen. It is not really a story about 3 daughters with impossible powers. It is not even really a story about a war between civilizations. It is a story about what happens when someone chooses to show up. Daniel Carter did not have to open his door that night. He did not have to make breakfast. He did not have to stay. He did not have to fight the Krath or build a life around 3 girls who were not his responsibility. He did not have to say yes to any of it. But he did, every single time, without being asked twice. And that choice, that simple, quiet, human choice to show up and keep showing up, turned out to be the most powerful thing in the galaxy. Think about that. The Krath had weapons that could cross star systems. They had armies and technology and 60 years of war behind them. And the thing that was going to end them was not a bigger weapon. It was not a stronger army. It was a man in northern England who made eggs and toast and said, "This is my house, and nobody comes in uninvited." That is the twist. That is the thing that the story was building toward from the very first moment. The alien queen did not choose Daniel because he was powerful. She chose him because he was good. Because somewhere in her ability to see across worlds and civilizations and centuries of history, she had found one man on one small planet who would do the right thing simply because it was the right thing. No reward. No recognition. No guarantee of anything. Just a man who would open his door. And in a galaxy full of power and war and ancient prophecies, that turned out to be the rarest thing of all. The daughters of the alien queen grew up. They became extraordinary. Lyra guided civilizations with her sight. Saya healed wounds that had lasted generations. Pip rebuilt worlds that had been broken by war. And the bridge they built between Earth and the stars changed everything. Not through conquest, not through force, through connection, through the simple, radical act of choosing to understand each other. The war with the Krath did not end in a battle. It ended in a conversation. A conversation that Saya made possible by helping the Krath feel, for the first time in their history, what it felt like to be on the other side of their own violence. What it felt like to be the ones who were afraid. The ones who were losing everything. They stopped fighting. Not because they were defeated, because they finally understood. And Daniel Carter, the man who had started all of this by opening his door at 3 a.m, lived to see it. He lived to see the bridge built. He lived to see the war end. He lived to see his family, his strange and extraordinary and impossible family, change the shape of the galaxy. He never became famous. Nobody on Earth ever knew what he had done. He went back to his small house eventually. He drank his tea. He watched the stars at night and knew things about them that no other human being knew. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, he would hear a knock at his door, and he would always open it. If this opened your eyes to what one person's choice can really mean, then stay with us, because the next story goes even deeper. What happens when the daughters return to Earth with children of their own? What does the bridge between worlds actually look like? And what is the one secret that Queen Zara never told anyone, not even her daughters, about why she really chose Daniel Carter? That story is coming, and it will change everything you thought you knew about this one. Let's take a moment and look at what just happened in this story. A queen made an impossible choice and trusted a stranger with everything she loved. 3 daughters found a home in the most unexpected place in the galaxy. A man discovered that ordinary goodness is the most extraordinary power in the universe. And a war that lasted 60 years ended not with a weapon but with understanding. 4 things. 4 ideas that are bigger than any sci-fi story. Because they are true in every world, on every planet, in every civilization that has ever existed. The most powerful thing you can do is show up. The most dangerous thing in the universe is compassion that refuses to quit. The most important choice you will ever make is who you open your door to. And the bridge between any 2 worlds, any 2 people, any 2 ideas, is always built one small act of trust at a time. If this story hit you the way it hit us when we wrote it, then do one thing right now. Hit that subscribe button. Because we make stories like this every single week. Stories that are bigger than entertainment. Stories that make you think. Stories that stay with you. And if you want to go deeper, watch our next video. It is already waiting for you. It picks up exactly where this one left off. And the first 5 minutes will completely change how you see everything that happened here today. Drop a comment below and tell us this. If an alien queen knocked on your door tonight and asked you to take care of her children, what would you do? Would you open the door? We want to know. Because your answer says more about you than you might think. This is FFI Sci-Fi. We tell the stories the universe is not ready for. And we will see you in the next one.